But who is Lieutenant Colonel Vidman? Let's take a look at the monitor briefly. Lieutenant Colonel retired Jim Hickman wants you to know about Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vidman, who he worked with. Says, I know Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vidman from a combined U.S.-Russian exercise called Atlas Vision 12 in Grufenwald, GE, Germany. He worked with the Russian embassy, and I was assigned to the JMTC, the Joint Multinational Training Command, within the USAREUR, U.S. Army Europe. He worked in coordination with the Russian 15th Peacekeeping Brigade, and I was in charge of all simulations planning, as well as assisting the USAREUR lead planner and the senior military planner. The following account of Lieutenant Colonel Vidman's words and actions are completely accurate to the best of my recollection and have been corroborated by others. Now see, this is a witness who the President's Council or the Republicans would want to call. We interacted on several different occasions throughout the planning cycle, but it was during the actual execution of the exercise that we had an issue relevant to his recent testimony. As stated earlier, Atlas Vision 12 was conducted at JMTC in the VPS-2, Virtual Battle Simulations 2 classrooms for simulation. Vidman, who was a major at the time, was sitting in one of the classrooms talking to the U.S. and Russian soldiers, as well as the young officers and GS employees about America, Russia, and Obama. He was apologetic of American culture, laughed about Americans not being educated or worldly, and really talked up Obama and globalism to the point of uncomfortable. He would speak with the Russian soldiers and laugh as if at the expense of the U.S. personnel. It was so uncomfortable and unprofessional, one of the GS employees came and told me everything above. I walked over and sat in earshot of Vidman, and sure enough, all was confirmed. One comment truly struck me as odd, and it was with respect to America's falsely thinking they're exceptional, when he said, quote, he, Obama, is working on that now, unquote. And he said it with a snide, I know a secret look on his face. I honestly don't know what it meant. It just sounded like an odd thing to say. Regardless, after hearing him bash America a few times in front of subordinates, Russians, and GS employees, as well as hearing an earful about globalization, Obama's plan, etc., I'd had enough. I tapped him on the shoulder and asked him to step outside. At that point, I verbally reprimanded him for his actions, and I'll leave it at that, so as not to be unprofessional myself. The bottom line is, Lieutenant Colonel Vidman was a partisan Democrat, at least as far back as 2012. So much so, junior officers and soldiers felt uncomfortable around him. This is not your professional, field-grade officer who has the character and integrity to do the right thing. Do not let the uniform fool you. He is a political activist in uniform. I pray our nation will drop this hate, vitriol, and division and unite as our founding fathers intended. I need to make a slight correction on my statement. It was actually Atlas Vision 13 when the incident occurred. I was thrown off as the next year Russia invaded Crimea. Also, I was promoted to Chief Regional Joint and Combined Exercises Branch, USAREUR, over many exercises. Now you know more about Lieutenant Colonel Vidman, who was held up by Schiff and the Democrats, who marched into his secret testimony in the skiff in the bottom of the House of Representatives building, and you were told you must not criticize Lieutenant Colonel Vidman, you must not look into his background and so forth. Whatever he says is kosher.